This is Garis, masculist MGTOW flyers, that is 2-3 page essays on the themes of masculism and MGTOW, written by and read aloud by Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. This is flyer number 491, entitled SNurF Up. This is part 2, carrying straight on. In order for an MFB to become nurturative, will require a sea change in her mentality, in her self-image as a feminist. She has been brainwashed all her life, open brackets, unless she is old as I am, and I will be 3/4 of a century old this year, my definition of an old man, close brackets. That gender oppression is a one-way street. So when she starts learning of masculist ideas, open brackets, as boyfriend after boyfriend refuses to give her his sperm due to the awful toxicity of the divorce courts, taken over by the hated fluffy feminist hypocrite genociders, close brackets, she will be exposed to the masculist views of her boyfriends, who tell her that they are MGTOWs in their lifestyle, refusing to marry, rejecting paternity, due to the fact that the fluffy feminists have made divorce so toxic for men that they've made marriage and paternity toxic for men. These MFBs will thus be exposed to masculist ideas and be influenced by them, or their dumping boyfriends will bite their fucking heads off, telling them that even rape is small beer in comparison to women's, to fluffies, decades-lasting, man-slaving parasitism. Once these MFBs have converted themselves into being bi-conscious, they will lose their feminazi anger at men and soften up, allowing their nurturative instincts, open brackets, that evolved in them over millions of years, used to nurture their children to adulthood, close brackets, to manifest themselves and to employ them to make themselves more attractive to the men in their lives whom they really want to stick around, rather than see these men dump them, walking out the door on them screaming, quote, "Feminazi cunt, misandrous bitch, go rot in hell, you fat unfuckable misandrous shit," close quote. And now for the third component in the term SNurF, that is FIP. It's FIP. The term FIP is very important to the masculists. It's one of their key concepts. A FIP is a financially independent person. That is someone who has bothered to get a career-competent education so they can be a real FIP as an adult, earning good money that the economy values and pays well for. The masculists estimate that about 80% of young women choose to become fluffy crappers, studying fluffy crap majors at high school. That is the soft option, the intellectually easy, intellectually lazy option, that is memory-based and not analysis-based, that is majors such as English Lit, history, foreign languages, etc. and not the analytic subjects like math and the sciences. The masculists want the teaching of calculus be made compulsory for all 11th and 12th graders in high school, the way it was in the old Soviet Union, so that women are not excluded from studying STEM and the professions at university. A fluffy is a masculist label based on the word fluff for a traditional woman who expects to be able to parasite off the money and labour of a man. One of the major political aims of the masculists is the creation of a FIP society, in which all adults are FIPs, who have had a career-competent education, who have bothered to FIP up, so that they are FIPs as adults and pull their own financial weight and not expect, fluffy style, to be able to parasite off the money and labour of a man, thus manslaving him for decades, a major gender crime committed by a woman against a man that makes fluffies so hated by masculists that the masculists aim to wipe out fluffies by totally ignoring them, forcing their fluffy parasite genes to be removed from the gene pool, that is severely punished by being made manless, hence loveless, sexless, babyless and spat at, rejected by society both socially and sexually. Mascus aim to put a masculist group in every high school, every campus, so that young men are in a position, as well as be intellectually armed with masculist ideas, masculist rhetoric, to be able to apply tremendous moral pressure on these young fluffy parasites to get off their fat parasitic asses and FIP up, or be left rotting on the shelf, living miserable half-lives due to their manlessness and babylessness. Masculists see fluffydom as manslavery, and manslavery as slavery, and hence a war issue. Masculists see manslavery as a much bigger problem than was Negro slavery in the 1800s, which was the root cause of the US Civil War that cost the lives of over 500,000 soldiers. Masculists aim to effectively exterminate fluffies and fluffy feminists, slowly, by totally ignoring them. Masculists hate fluffies for their decades-lasting man-slaving parasitism, but have an even greater hatred for the fluffy feminists who have taken over the divorce courts, financially massacring and destroying the lives of one father in 4, stripping him of custody of his kids with a 90% probability, taking his house to give to his ex-wife, half of his wealth and stuff goes to her. He's made to pay for his kids he will barely see, and often be forced to pay her alimony for the rest of his life, with no moral nor legal obligation on her to get off her fat parasitic ass and FIP up. So she continues to parasite off him after the divorce the way she did before the divorce. You see why masculists have such a hatred of fluffies, seeing them as manslavers, and that manslavery is a war issue. The masculists are at war against the fluffies and fluffy feminists. The fluffy feminists are even more hated by the masculists, since the fluffy feminists control the divorce courts, so are seen as being both hypocrites and genociders. They are seen by the masculists as hypocrites, since these fluffy feminists want equal rights with men in the parliaments, but reject equal obligations with men by not sharing equally with men the burden of earning the living, by not bothering to get career competent educations at high school and college. So expect to behave as feminists in the parliaments, but as fluffy manslaving parasites in the divorce courts. Modern marriage is such a shitty deal for men in today's world that in many countries now, 2/3 of young men refuse to marry, reject paternity, and live the MGTOW, that's men going their own way, lifestyle, spending their money on themselves, doing what they love, instead of being a man-slave to a bloody fluffy parasite who will live off his money and labour for decades. Since 2/3 of young men lately reject marriage and paternity, the birth rate is crashing, well below replacement rate, making these fluffy feminist hypocrites who control the divorce courts indirect genociders, since the MGTOWs are merely reacting against the toxicity of the divorce courts created by the hated fluffy feminists who control them. Thus these fluffy feminists are indirect genociders who have to be stopped, with bullets if necessary, since they are wiping out whole populations, a huge political and social problem. ... Putting these three concepts together, slim, nurturative, FIP, gives the masculist label of SNurF. Masculists want women to be SNurFs and apply powerful moral pressure on women to SNurF up, or be considered much less attractive to men than those women who do make the effort to SNurF up, which in practice often means learning to become bi-conscious so that they slough off their monoconscious feminazi bitchiness towards men. Men don't want relationships with misandrist, male-hating, feminazi cunts and vote with their feet. They simply refuse to have relationships with such women, not even pumping and dumping them, thus forcing them to rot on the shelf, severely punished by men by not getting one. In the coming decade, we will see a reversal of the gender political tide as men, as masculists, take the gender political initiative, a verbally aggressive initiative, hurling abuse at the MFBs and putting powerful moral pressure on them to SNurF up or be left rotting on the shelf. Women, that is, feminists, have been putting pressure on men to behave in ways favourable to women for 6 decades. Now it's men's turn, the turn of the masculists, to do the same to women, putting powerful masculist moral pressure on them to SNurF up, to become what men want women to be, thus reversing the gender political tide, thus dominating gender politics this decade as masculist ideas spread across the planet, influencing both sexes as men become intellectually armed and charged with masculist ideas and masculist rhetoric to enable men to lash out at the MFBs, emotionally crushing them and forcing women to SNurF up or be rejected. Those women who stubbornly resist this powerful masculist moral pressure will pay a very heavy price. They will rot on the shelf, manless, loveless, sexless, babyless and shunned. They will have plenty of time to reflect on their manless misery, wondering why they didn't SNurF up when they had the chance, before they became fat and ugly, long past the age when men find women young, fertile and want to stick their penises into them. Non-SNurFs will just quietly die away, ignored, unpenised, seen as Untermensch, unworthy of masculistic men's attention. Cheers. Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. Email profhugodegaris@yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. Author of the book Masculism, Men's Rebellion Against Being Man's Slaves to Women, an e-textbook of 490 plus masculist flyers for men's studies courses. Freely downloadable in Microsoft Word format from my website.